Guys, this is Sam, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to do an animation in Photoshop. So first you're going to want to go to Window. We're just going to open that and then scroll all the way down to Timeline here. And then it'll open this bar at the bottom. And there's going to be two options. You can create a video timeline, which is generally you can edit video as it says it does. And then the other one's going to be create frame animation, and that's the one that we're going to be focusing on today. So when you open that, it opens up a first frame for you, and you can create new frames with this little piece of paper in the bottom, and you can create as many as you want, and every time you create a new frame, it'll create a new layer. And for every layer, you can edit each layer individually and then turn them on and off. So we'll have like two other frames. You can turn each one off and maybe correspond them to the certain frame number if you want to keep it organized, but maybe you are reverting back to previous frames. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and delete these and start off with just two frames. So we're going to make a ball bounce across the screen. We're going to click this little shape layer right here and change it to circle, or the ellipse tool if you have not already, and we're going to hold shift and we're just going to create a sphere ball. And notice how in the bottom here, anywhere we move it, it moves it on the second frame as well. And to change that, we're going to click propagate frame 1. This will make every frame, when checked, it'll make every frame the same as the first frame, and generally we don't want that unless we're, editing something and making a new layer or something in the animation. So we're going to have this start off the screen, and we're going to, now that it's gone, we're going to move this second frame down to the bottom here. And now that that's done, so they're two separate frames, and to create all of the frames in between, this is a little tool to save some time. You can tween animation frames, and that's at the bottom here. And we're going to just add 12 frames since that's already typed in there, and click OK. And then it creates frames in between and moves the ball across the screen. So now that we have that, you can change however many times you want this to loop. So if you want it to loop forever, you can just change it in the bottom here, and then it'll just constantly be on repeat. But right now we're just going to set it to once so we can just keep track of our progress here. So next you're going to want to create a new frame down here, and as far as I know, Photoshop does not allow you to edit the or transform the size of the ball after it's already been created in frame between, because then it'll change every frame all at once. And I can show you how here. So say we want to shrink it or squash and stretch. We'll just squash and stretch it actually, but we wanted to squash it here. When you click OK, it squashes it on every frame. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to make a new ellipse. And now we run into another problem where it's turned it on every single frame. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to delete all up to from 1 to 13. We're not going to delete, sorry. We're going to turn it off. So now it's just going to be the ball going across the screen, and then it just sits there. So, and we're going to want to turn that off on the bottom too as well. And you're going to want to turn the old ellipse off on the next couple frames. So what we're going to want to do here is, we're going to have it start on this frame, and since Photoshop works the way it does, we're going to start with this frame hitting the ground, and then the next frame we're going to do is we're going to make this a little bit smaller. We can just change it to however long we want. So since we have 12 frames, we could probably do maybe 80%, and then we'll just squash it down to wherever. So that we're gonna have to make a new ellipse here, turn this one off, and we're gonna have to do this on every frame, and then turn that off on every frame as well. So this is where it gets a little complicated. We're going to have to make several more frames than what we want for this image. So we're gonna have this next, this is gonna be, let's say, frame 15, and it's going to, we're just going to shrink it down just a little bit to 80%. Drag that back down to the middle here, click OK, and now it'll start squashing. And we're going to go to the next frame. We're going to turn off, or we're going to duplicate frame 15 so we don't have to like do that again. And then we're going to frame 16. Shrink it down again, 80% again. And then we're going to turn it off on every other frame. And then we'll actually just delete this, duplicate that again. And it's just like a repetitive process where you're just doing the same thing and you're turning this down to 80 once again. And then we're going to turn it off on all the other ones. So now it'll just play and it'll kind of shrink down. And we have another frame on this one, so we're not going to want that. So now it should just squash. And next frame, we're going to have that just play back essentially. So what we're going to do is we're going to make these new frames, and we can just delete them as we make them. We're going to go back to frame 16 in this one, and then we're going to delete frame 19 here, and then we're going to go back to frame 15 on this one, and then we're going to go back to frame, or ellipse 1 copy on this one. So now it'll play and it'll squash and then it'll come back, and then we can have it move across the screen once again. So now we have ellipse 1 copy. So now we can go back here, create a new frame, and then we can just go back to this original one right here, and we can move it across to where we want it off the screen. And then we go back to this tweening layer right here, and then we can create 12 more frames, and then it'll just have it bounce off the screen. We can see that here. So now we're going to click this and we'll just loop it forever so we can just keep watching it, and it'll just bounce on and off the screen. And that's how you animate in Photoshop.